All right. Let me know if we have audio. Do we have audio? Give me a quick sound and video check. Tell me in the chat, do we have audio? Audio, good. Thank you, B. Wood. I appreciate that. So I've got a few things to cover today, and we're going to be getting into GH and KH, pH, and I definitely want to get into a couple other announcements. That's a really cool announcement that a lot of you that have been following the channel for a long time are going to love. And I have some new products that I want to show you that are very, very cool that you're going to like. So let's go ahead and do a couple very quick shout outs and we'll get this thing underway. I want to thank all of you early birds that were on here. Let me see, who was it? We had Paul Newman on here very early, Ron and Greg and Denny. Hey, Denny, good to see you, one of my moderators. Carrie Myers from Alberta, Canada. In the Jeans, all right. In the Jeans, Wally's Fish World is here. And all right, more getting on. Miguel is on. Okay. Ron. Very, very good. More folks are jumping on. Excellent. All right. Well, let's go ahead and do the official start here, which I like to do. Here we go, as is the tradition. All right, so officially welcome to today's Cichlids and Coffee. Hope you're having a cup of your favorite brew wherever you are. And whatever that brew might be. All right, hey GP and Whip. We got some more moderators on the chat. So you folks are going to have to behave today. All right. So first of all, hey Justin, glad you're here, and yes, thank you for that. It was hard. It was hard in two ways. Justin is saying that he's sorry about the linny, the Nimbochromis linny that tipped over on me, and it was hard for two reasons. One is I didn't realize he had done that. He had done it behind some of the plants, and it wasn't until one of you spotted it in a video that I posted. Hey, is that a dead fish? And I read the comment, I come running back downstairs and go, was that a dead fish or was it a rock? And so it's kind of a double whammy. So then of course, I removed him, I examined him, I looked him over. And then of course I needed to do a quick edit on the video. I don't like posting, dead fish. And you'd have to have a good eye to spot him. Some of you did and mentioned it in the comments. So I looked him over and then I came to my conclusion, and some of you saw that video on crashed pH that I put out, and then the comments under the video were very interesting, and they ranged anywhere from don't add anything to your aquarium, all the way to I've been using buffering products for 20 years and getting great results. So like anything that you post on YouTube, you're going to get the full spectrum of responses from that sounds legit, or I bet you that's what happened, to I'm pretty sure that's not what happened. It was probably something else. Fish die all the time, which might very well have been the case. I mean, fish get, they experience physical issues just like people do, and they do, fall over sometimes or tip over. and die on us. And it's sad when it happens. It's frustrating because you don't, unless you do like some kind of a formal autopsy, right? If you're some type of a veterinarian, you really never know for sure. But it did send me down an interesting rabbit hole, because like I mentioned in that original video, the first thing I did is I did some water testing, and I discovered that that my pH had slipped. Now, is that why he died? Look, I can't tell you 100% that that's why he died. And I have always been of the mind of don't chase pH, instead let your fish acclimate. But I talked to Fritz. I sent him a text, Andre Fritz over at Beantown, and I said, hey, listen, these fish that these cichlids that you provided, I mean, what pH do you keep them at? And his response was 8, which is a world of difference from 7.2. That's a big gap in the world of pH. So I said, okay, you wonder, wouldn't he have died immediately from the shock? There was definitely some acclimation, but there's another aspect to pH that and to GH, in my case KH, that has to do with this problem, and that I'll cover with you. And it has to do with the stress that the fish is experiencing because of a malnutrition that can occur. Now, I tapped into my chat GPT and came up with some really interesting information. And again, I'm going down this rabbit hole, and I was aware of these things before, but not at this level of depth. But your fish are getting vital nutrients, in part minerals, to some degree through their body as they get older, and their gills, and their scales become harder and thicker. Not so much, but as they get older, it's more through the gills. They're getting minerals, the nutrients, through the gills. Now, in Lake Malawi, let's just say for the sake of example, there's 100 bits of calcium, magnesium, and the other minerals in, let's just say, in a gallon of water. Just for example, let's say 100 for simplicity. And so that's nutrition that they're getting. And if you have a low KH, if you have a low GH, and you have low minerals in your water, even though they're getting some from their food as well, and I use very, very, very nutrient-rich food, right? Northfin, Sarah, these are very fortified foods. But the day in, day out mineral intake and balancing of salinity and things of this nature that's occurring is going through the gills. And it says here, through the gills, most important route through the gills are covered with thin membranes that allow ions and gases to pass through. Specialized cells called chloride cells or ionocytes actively regulate the uptake and release of minerals and salts. Fish use these cells to absorb essential ions like calcium, sodium, potassium, magnesium from the surrounding water. This process helps maintain osmotic balance, the correct concentration of salts inside their body compared to the water outside. So you get a fish that might get bloated on you. You get a fish that, because of that imbalance, there's a problem, a struggle of some sort. They also get minerals through the digestive tract. It says here, in summary, the fish breathe minerals in much like they do oxygen, mainly through the gills, which act as a semi-permeable gateway for essential ions to enter and leave the body. So for me to say, let's just let them acclimate to a low KH, low pH situation and lower GH, it would be saying, let me let them run in a somewhat undernourished or malnourished condition. So let's talk about these other points real quick. Now, first of all, it is fixed. It's been adjusted up into good ranges, and you can see the fish behind me, active, colorful. So for those of you not entirely familiar, GH measures the total concentration of calcium and magnesium in the water. These are the ions. These are absorbed through gills and skin. Skin in young fish, through the skin in scaleless fish, right? These minerals are essential for bone growth, nerve function, enzyme activity, and muscle contraction. Fish constantly lose these ions through osmoregulation, so the water needs to have enough for them to replace what they lose. Too low GH. Fish can suffer from osmotic stress, poor growth. Your fish aren't growing as fast as you want them to. Poor growth, lethargy, weak immune systems. You have fish that get sick a lot. You might have a low GH. Live bears like mollies or guppies and African cichlids are especially sensitive to low GH. Carbonate hardness. Now we're getting into KH, right? What it is. KH measures the amount of bicarbonate and carbonate, HCO and CO3, ions in the water. Why it matters. These ions act as a buffer. They also interact with CO2 to form a natural acid-base balance. So imagine bicarbonates are taking the acids in the aquarium and making them safe, neutralizing them to some degree. So your fish are releasing ammonia, they're releasing urine, right? Nitrates are easing up nitric acid, right? Those acids are being, to a large degree, buffered by the bicarbonates, by the KH. A pH can crash easily, stressing fish and damaging their gill function if you have too low a KH. I had too low a KH. pH can crash easily, stressing fish. Beneficial bacteria that handle the nitrogen cycle can also be harmed by a pH crash. So you can see how quickly this thing can cascade into a bunch of other issues, right? The pH can become too high or difficult to adjust for softwater species. How GH and KH together affect mineral absorption. GH gives fish the minerals they need. KH gives the water stability. So those minerals stay available and the fish's osmoregulation stays consistent. If either one is off balance, fish have to work harder to maintain internal stability, leading to stress and illness. So in California, this was a problem that was to some degree camouflaged because, like Andre at Beantown Aquatics, I had liquid rock coming out of my faucet, right, out of the tap. So if my crushed coral or aragonite started to become exhausted, it didn't matter that much because the water change would add a big dose of hardness and the buffering would continue with water changes. And the aragonite and the crushed coral wouldn't exhaust that quickly because I wasn't putting in a low pH acidic water that would really dissolve up the aragonite and the crushed coral quickly. So keeping the African cichlids in California, in Southern California, where I was getting a very hard water out of the tap is very different from here, where I'm getting a relatively soft water with a low, with a low pH, low KH. So it recommends here to raise the GH, add crushed coral, aragonite, limestone, remineralization salts, which is ideal for African cichlids and some live bears, right? Raise the KH, they say you can use baking soda, but also crushed coral will work on the KH. And they recommend, like I did in my video, do it gradually and test frequently. So if you have ChatGPT on your phone, I tell you, all you have to do is just type in, tell me about KH in an aquarium, and you're going to get a very long report. And then at the end, it'll ask you if you want more information on various other areas. And it's very interesting. So the way I handled this is I use these two products initially. Now, ideally, I hope to phase these products out because I'm going to be, and I'll show you, I'm going to be adding a shipment of limestone that's coming in. Now, it's not the prettiest rock. So am I going to add it to the sump? Or am I going to add it to the back corners of the aquarium like I talked about in the video? We'll see. We'll see where I end up. But this limestone is going to do really well for adding calcium, magnesium. Now, to help with the KH, I've reached out to my friends at Aquarium Co-op, and they're sending me bags of crushed coral. Now, the crushed coral, maybe I'll sprinkle it in the back of the tank. Just kind of pepper it around. It will look a lot whiter than the substrate. Or maybe I'll just put it in a mesh bag and put it in the sump. I could also put it inside of the FX6. But I'm going to use 4 of these bags of crushed coral, and I've got about 50 pounds of limestone. In the meantime, I'll continue to test, and I'll use the Riff Lake Cichlid buffer by Fritz, which has worked marvelously. This is 15 teaspoons to treat this tank, and you keep treating until you get up into the ranges that you want, and then you don't have to treat for like every 2 weeks or so. And it's Riff Lake, this product right here. I'm not sponsored by Fritz. This one requires 1 teaspoon for 20 gallons for a Malawi tank. It's half a teaspoon for 10 gallons, 1 teaspoon for 20 gallons for Malawi. They have a recipe for Tanganyika and Victoria, and Malawi is half a teaspoon or 2.5 grams. So I have to add 15 teaspoons for the 300 gallon. Now, this is used in conjunction with what are called Riff Lake cichlid salts. And the cichlid salts are 3 teaspoons for every 40 gallons. So I'm going to be doing a water change on the aquarium behind me after we end off. And then what will happen is, as I'm filling the aquarium, I will give it a dose of these 2 products to continue to keep things where I want them. Then, after I add the limestone and I add the bags of crushed coral to the substrate or in the sump, I will be able to then, hopefully, over time, just continue to kind of wean off of the Fritz products. But not keeping the KH and GH and pH where it should be. It would produce stress on the fish that could affect growth, color, activity. The KH, of course, will prevent dangerous pH swings that can cause gill irritation and stress. and the crushed coral, aragonite, things of that nature are going to help with stability. Now, osmoregulation. Is that a great word? Osmoregulation. In mineral-rich water, Malawi cichlids don't have to work as hard to regulate salts through their gills. This saves energy for growth, immunity, and reproduction. In too soft a water, which is what I had actually going on here, the water is getting too soft, they lose essential ions too quickly, leading to stress, flashing, and even bloat. Now that explains why sometimes after a water change, they can flash. In other words, scrape against rocks, things of that nature. And they can bloat. Why? Not because they have parasites, but because they can't maintain a proper balance between what's outside of their body and what's inside of their body. Lake Malawi cichlids thrive in hard, alkaline, mineral-rich, and stable water. pH 8, plus or minus 0.3, GH 15 degrees, KH 10 degrees. These parameters maximize mineral absorption through the gills and keep their osmoregulation effortless. So they're not dedicating a lot of energy to just trying to stay alive. So at any rate, once it gets stable and I put in the limestone, I put in the crushed coral, I should be able to just monitor it from time to time and we'll be okay. Always keeping in mind that the water that's coming in from my tap is low KH, low pH. Some of the fish in here love it, right? I'm sure the discus don't mind it. I'm sure my egg bears in, the egg layers in the plankton, they don't mind it. But for the African cichlids, it was a problem. Every now and then an African cichlid would develop an odd growth on their body. That might have been related to it, right? So always be learning, my friends. All right. Chef Steve, some say not to put crushed coral in your substrate as the sand, sifters can get. Well, let me tell you something. If these guys can get stuff caught, they would get it caught because they're constantly running pieces of the substrate. I mean, it's constant spitting, right? Especially after I feed them. So I've never run into that. I did run into a Malawi hawk in California. I think I put a video out on it, who swallowed a piece of plastic plant. And he swallowed it in a way where he took it from the bottom up, right? So it was like a fish hook. You couldn't get it out. It wouldn't come out. So he was swimming around with his mouth looking like he was carrying eggs. So it just wasn't right. And so I said, something's wrong. So I pulled him out and I opened up his mouth, just like you would do if you were going to vent, or have him spit out fryer. I opened his mouth up and there was this plant. So I had to get in there very gently and kind of move the plant and pulled it out. And it was it was a good size piece of plant. And his mouth returned to normal shape, and I felt very proud of my surgery. So on the subject of plants, I've got a very, very cool announcement. Before I do that, let me very quickly do a fast shout out to those of you who support the channel on a monthly basis, the Garage Gang members, my Patreon supporters, including Linda Henson, who just jumped in to the Garage Gang. Thank you, Linda, for jumping on. And so she's a new member. So thank you to all of you who support the channel on a monthly basis. As as members of the Garage Gang, as Patreon supporters. Also, a shout out to a couple other folks very quickly here. My friends over at Aquarium Co-op, my friends over at Northfin, and for their ongoing support of the channel. You are all very, very appreciated. And by the way, there are 2 Northfin food packets that were sent out that were returned to me. One of them, I think, was Sanchez, and the other one, I think, went out to... Anyway, there are 2 of them that went out and came back. And I'm going to go to the post office this next week and resend them. It was real weird. I sent them out UPS, and then they came back from United Postal Service saying missing postage. It didn't make any sense to me. So I'm going to go back to UPS and ask them what's going on here. Why am I getting this sent back to me by the post office? So if you haven't received your food packet, hang in there. It will arrive, I promise. And let's see here. Also, another quick shout out to Josh up at the over at Cunningham Tropicals. I believe he's going through a large remodel, but he still will honor 15% off. So visit Josh at Cunningham Tropicals. Check out what he's doing up there. And for those of you who use Amazon and who doesn't use Amazon in today's world, if you access Amazon using this link, you will actually support the channel. A small percentage of your purchase will go to the channel without affecting your cost 1 cent. I think if you spend $1,000, I get 10 cents. So, hey, it adds up. And one last thing, if you'd like to order t-shirts and other swag, coffee mugs, things of this nature, visit the Teespring store. It is greatly appreciated when you do. And I've got mugs there and hoodies. It's almost hoodie season, so look for the hoodies. And there you go. Greg R. hit me with a super chat. Thank you, Greg. Greg says, hey, Ben, where can I go for a pistogramma knowledge and mail order purchase? How many could I put in a 75-gallon community tank? Well, keep in mind, Greg, I am new to the pistogramma world. I am loving the one I have now. Very peaceful, doesn't chase the embers or anybody, really. I'm looking at a 55 right now with a relatively small pistogramma. I would say you could easily get 10 to 15, easily. I have heard that if they pair up, they can become aggressive, like really any species that's laying eggs, but that would be my guess, minimum, along with other fish. And some of you on here who are more familiar with the pistogramma, why don't you jump in and give Greg a hand with that question. Now, let me get back to the announcement that I wanted to make. Let me pull it up here. You know, many times people ask me, and it's kind of funny to me because sometimes they'll ask me about the plants in the big cichlid tanks, right? Hey, what kind of plant is that? It looks really good. They'll think it's a live plant, or they'll know it's a artificial plant, but they just want to know where I got it. And I have to go through a big, long explanation about how I picked them up from a group called Elite Cichlids, but they had a family tragedy and they closed the business. Well, I just got a call last weekend from Jack and Mike over at Elite, and I am very happy to announce that Elite Cichlids is going to be getting back in the game. Now, keep in mind, these folks were originally florists. They were all about arrangements, and that was their area of expertise. They got involved in cichlids and started making very high quality plant arrangements for cichlid tanks that are on a like a rock base. They put them on a rock base, so they're very stable, and they're just a cut above any artificial plant out there. So they contacted me. They are getting back into the game. They are sending me a package of what they're doing now, and I'm very excited to. I mean, it was a real loss to have them no longer in the hobby for us, because they were just so good, and what happened was so tragic. It was a very sad situation that happened, but at the end of the day, they're back, and I am very, very excited. Watch for an upcoming video where I'm going to open up the box they send me, and I'm going to go ahead and freshen up the aquarium behind me with some brand new plants. And those will be the new plants from them. They're very good at making tall, flowing plants that work really well in larger aquariums that have a lot of water movement, so you can have plants kind of moving around. And I'll show you, I think I might have here, look at the tank for a second. Let me grab something. This is a very simple design, but it'll give you an example of what they do. It's just something that I pulled out to clean, and it's just really, really nice. And you can see they attach it to a nice piece of rock. Now he tells me this helps to buffer. I don't know what I mean, maybe, I don't think it's limestone, but he then uses an aquarium safe glue, and he pushes the plants through, and then they're glued on the bottom with shells for buffering. So just a real cut above any type of artificial plant you can get out there. And this is one of their older designs. Their newer designs are going to be much more detailed, much more elaborate, and I am very excited for those to get here. On the topic of products, I want to show you some cool stuff, and then I want to get into some of your comments. I went to Bulk Reef Supply. I'm not sponsored by Bulk Reef Supply, and I'm not sponsored by this company here, but this is called the Duetto 2. And what this is right here, this is a sensor that attaches to the side of your sump with a magnet. And then there's a pump that goes into a reservoir. And this is the brain. And the brain can tell the water level and then keep your sump at the ideal water level. And so I just got this. I'm going to be putting this on the sump under the 210 gallon South American tank, because for some reason that sump runs low it evaporates a lot faster than the sump I have under the 300. So I'm going to be using this Duetto, and I'll let you know how that goes when I've installed it. Got that from Bulk Reef Supply. I also have a product here that I've had for a while, and I need to install it. And if I had installed it, I might not have gone through the problems that I went through. Cactoli. And what this is a sensing unit that goes, I can put it in my sump. It communicates to my phone, and it gives me water parameters using an app. So it gives you ongoing real-time reports. And I've never opened it. I'm going to go ahead and get this installed. And that was sent to me. There we go. All right. Two more very cool products. It's somebody's asking about the name. It's just called Elite Cichlids. And I'll have a video up pretty shortly. I'll have all the contact information. They might have new contact information. They were gone for several years, maybe 4 years they were gone. And all of a sudden they contact me and go, hey, listen, we want to get back in the game. I said, hey, I'm here for you. I've loved their plants. Their plants have been in my aquariums for, while I was in California. I brought them with me. 6 years I've had these plants. Every now and then you got to pull them out. You got to run them in a little bit of bleach, for 24 hours, then run them in some water for 24 hours. Let the bleach kind of neutralize. But do you folks remember a while back I talked to you about a company called Expertmatic? Expertmatic has those big internal filters, and they have upped their game. The old internal filters were just these clunky white little canisters, and it would pull from the bottom and the sides. Then they came up with a new version that was solid plastic and only pulled from the bottom. And the bottom sponge would get all clogged up, and the top ones wouldn't work quite as effectively. Well, they solved the problem. This is their new unit. Check this thing out. This is they call it their 3-in-1, handles filtration, oxygen supply, and water circulation. AFD 500, aquarium internal filter, absorbs impurities, leaves water clear, fits up to a 220-gallon aquarium, easy to disassemble and clean. So at any rate, this looks so much better. It's like they brought it up to the 21st century here. And this part gets removed. Each chamber is, you can pop each one off and remove the sponges on the inside. If I can get that one off here. They made it so it's a little bit harder to remove it, which is good because they used to pop off too easily. They provide you with a little screwdriver to separate the chambers. Pull that out here. So they include that, and then you can pop the chambers open. But each chamber has sponges in it. And I've got to become more acquainted with it, but it's just such an upgrade overall in the way it looks. I'm loving it. Battling with it, but you can see the sponge. It's got sponge inside, and it's pulling from the sides and also from the bottom. So now you're going to get an even distribution of detritus throughout the entire unit. Now, this just pops on. You can clean the impeller very easily by popping that out. this whole unit detaches. If you need to do the impeller, very easily detaches. And you also have this Venturi setup. If you use this, you're going to get a lot of micro bubbles, a lot of bubbles, a lot of oxygen in the water. So if you need water movement, those Expertmatics are beasts. So anyway, watch for a review on that. And also watch for some upcoming unboxing, because I'm going to be getting some fish, hopefully some from Andre, some more cichlids, and I've got another order in from Aqua, and that should arrive in 2 weeks. I intentionally wanted it in 2 weeks just so I can have things ready. I'm going to be adding a couple more apistogrammas. I've fallen in love with those fish. Thank you for providing those links, guys, for Elite Cichlids. Hopefully those links are still active. Quick update on a couple fish. Here's the Starry Night, who is currently living in the 90-gallon. And as you can see, no fin damage. So I don't think the green tear or anybody, or the electric blue, I don't think anybody is harassing him. So he's looking pretty good. Fingers crossed. This is one of those fish that I've been a little bit cursed with. And this is my third try at a Starry Night, a Paratilapia pollini. And I'm hoping I can get this one nice, big, and fat. We'll see. Also, that apistogramma that I added to the 55, the cockatoo, he's looking great. There he is. Love the fin display on this fish. He's all over the tank. He's not staying in any one section. He's all over the place, eating like a pig. Very, very active and very peaceful. I'm actually looking at him as I speak. The two Empire gudgeons are continuing to be just very gray and dull, and will probably continue to be gray and dull for quite some time until they put on size. And assuming one of them is a male, because apparently the females, like African cichlids, stay gray and dull. So fingers crossed that I've got one or possibly two males. All right. Hey, Tiffany in the house. Good to see you, Tiffany. Z-Zip. Z-Zip is lurking around. I said hi to you, Chef Steve, didn't I? Of course I did. Nick is here. Hey there to you, Nick. We have Heaven. Heaven has arrived. AJ in the house. All right. Well, you know, Whip, that was my viewpoint too. Hey, Peas and Haps Forever. Good to see you. My viewpoint, Whip, was, adapt or die. But when you have a very soft water coming into an African cichlid tank, a low pH water, that's going to really dissolve the it's really going to exhaust aragonite and crushed coral. Something I didn't have to worry about. Like I said, in California, that was not an issue. It was a sort of a camouflaged situation because of the hard water coming out of the tap. So yeah, that my viewpoint was don't use buffering products, don't chase pH, don't, you know how I felt about it. But in going further down the rabbit hole, like I did with those little Chat GPT things I read to you, it was if I want to keep African cichlids, if I want to continue keeping African cichlids, and I do, I'm going to need to do a tweak on the water that comes from my tap. Otherwise, they're going to be working too hard at, at getting, putting too much effort in to getting the minerals they need to maintaining the right balance and salinity in the right, and that's going to create other problems. It's going to create compromised immune systems, stunted growth. It's going to affect color, activity, lifespan, right? So, and it's real funny because I'm going through a similar situation with my beagle. And I went through a situation with our family 25 years ago. He said, hey, let's cut out the colors, the preservatives, let's go organic. But even with my beagle, I started getting him a special kind of food that includes chicory and turmeric and blueberries and organ meat and all kinds of, and it's a dehydration process. It's not baked like the kibble. It doesn't have those horrible side effects that kibble can give a dog. So anyway, I'm kind of going through with all my pets. In California, I didn't have to worry about that. I had that liquid rock coming out of my tap. Anyway, Greg, I hope you got your question answered, if not by me, by some of the other folks. If you have any questions, start them with ben.o.ciclid, and they will jump out at me. Denny, I'll give you a call, buddy. Peas and haps forever. My friend Beagle has the same food. Yeah, since I moved here, my Beagle's been having ear issues. And I took him to the vet, and anytime you go to a vet, it's $300. But they said he's got allergies. Like the way we would get, histamine and junk, So Beagles are diggers. They're going to go out and dig. If you saw my yard, my backyard, you know what I mean. They're diggers. And I'm not going to stop him from digging unless I kept him inside all day, right? So I've got a backyard that's fenced. I like to let him out. So he's going to dig. And he's going to get into whatever's out there. And obviously something is affecting him because he shakes his head too much. And so I figured, okay, let's improve his food. My wife used to make him food. She used to make a big casserole of chicken with turmeric and chicory and sweet potato and all this good stuff, right? Blueberries and that worked, but it just got to be too much for her and her schedule. So I went on to organic kibble, but just by the way they make that kibble, it's not that it's got a byproduct in it that's not good for dogs. Anyway. Whip says that the vet is more expensive than Harley Davidson. Yeah, the second you walk in, hi, how are you? $300. And then if you need meds, it's another $100. Hey, Chef Steve, I just picked up a whole bunch of, the pothos roots. I just picked up a whole bunch of red root. My local fish store had some red root floaters. And so I got a whole bunch of red root floaters. They're in a tank over my shoulder here. And they're going to run red roots down. And then we'll see. We'll see if I like it, if I like the look, I'll add some of it to the discus tank, maybe to my 55 planted, but the local fish store had it, and I thought I'd pick some up. Red root floaters. Whip, of course I remember you. So yes, do what Whip did. Put Ben.o chart and then ask me a question. I'll try and get to it. Denny, I thought you pulled the trigger on that 75-gallon Tanganyika tank. I thought you already bought that. Well, definitely send me a picture after you got it set up. I want to see it. I'm looking at the chat. I'll share the chat with you. There you go. All right, now I'm going to do a fish room walkthrough in under 3 minutes. I'm going to release it as a short this afternoon, so watch for that. I'll give you an update on all the fish. Everyone's doing great. I'm looking at the discus. They're looking exceptional. I've got the 210 next to me. The Oscar staring at me like he always does. The redhead Tapajos, the blue Congos are looking great. These guys behind me, you can see they're all doing amazing. So we're at a good spot right now after having gone through a little bit of a tragedy, and hopefully we'll finish off the year strong. Add a few more fish, start to work out the logistics of the discus transfer. The discus are going to get transferred to the 90-gallon. I've decided on that. The question is how to do it in the smoothest, least traumatic way. They are very happy and healthy in that 55-gallon, but it is going to get too crowded in there for them. Somebody also suggested, I watched a video of a discus keeper in Europe, in Germany, and he said that discus are happier in crowded tanks, that they feel more confident. And one suggestion was that if you're going to transfer your discus to a new tank, that's the time to buy more discus. Put them in the new tank first, let them become established and acclimated, and then bring over. So if I want to add more discus, this might be the time when I get the 90-gallon ready. But first, I mean, it's going to be it's a process. I've got to take the fish out of the 90-gallon and put them where I'm going to put them. Some are going to go into the 210. I've got to make sure that they're going to be fine there, because if they're not, I've got to pull them back to the 90. So it's going to be a patient, gradual process that is going to attempt to make the least amount of disruption and upset. Denny Riddell, the 300 African looks amazing, and the water looks gin clear. Yeah, come on over. I'll make an aquarium cocktail. And they were just fed too, so usually it looks really cloudy after they've been fed. But the filtration on that, right? The dual C-shape pumps on a 40-gallon breeder and that FX6 are real good at moving particles out of the aquarium. Vernon, those two are beautiful fish. You'll know soon enough what they look like, and they are, of course, when they're little fry, all fry are just little gray guys, right? But when they start to color up, oh my goodness. The green tear in the 90 is amazing. He's that orange song. He's got that orange on the edge of the tail. And I'm looking, and he actually tries to pair up and do a mating dance with the electric blue acara. I don't think that they would lay eggs. I mean, maybe they would. I don't know. But it's funny how they do their little dance together. He's not really. He hangs out with the electric blue acara and leaves all the other fish alone. He's not really a violent fish. Hasn't been. But I'm looking at him in the far corner. I'd turn the camera and show him to you, but he's behind some plants, and you really wouldn't see him from this angle. Vernon Miles is working on tank number 8. Yes, you have MTS. 8 will turn into 10. DD Aquarium in the house. Just add my discus to the 125-gallon tank. They're getting too big for the 75. There you go. I hope it went smoothly. I hope they didn't go into any kind of shock. And what I'm going to do is probably, just for pH matching, I'll probably take water, maybe half the water in the 55 that the discus are in right now. I'll probably take that water, half of that water out, maybe more, and add it to the 90. So lower the water to about the water level in the 90 to about a third. Add a third from the 55, and then add fresh tap. So it's almost like like a water change, but with some of the water from the 55 just for pH matching. Making sure that the temp in the 90 is around 83 degrees, because that's where I've been running these discus. And some people say they run their discus tanks around 78. I started this tank at 83. All 10 discus look great. I don't want to change anything, so I'll probably I'll keep running it at 83. Wow, Peas and Haps. Peas and Haps was in Spain. That's awesome. My youngest son just came back from Spain. They were all over the place, Valencia, Barcelona. Yeah, I love the, I didn't go to a lot. I went to one aquarium store in Ireland, and it was beautifully maintained. You could eat off the floor. I mean, very, very clean, very impeccable. And I was very impressed. Chef Steve wants to know about food that stays mid-level. Well, it's funny. Food seems to either sink or float. There doesn't seem to be a lot of in between, unless you're attaching it to something, like a piece of cucumber on a hook. But I have noticed that some of that aquarium co-op magic food, I'll show it to you. And it depends on the size of fish you have. This is a very fine food, almost like a powder. And it will float for a very long time. throughout the aquarium. It'll just float there until the fish pick it off. And so it's very good for my 55-gallon planted, because I've got, you know, neons that sort of hang around the bottom. The rummy nose are around a third up. The rasbors are midway. The brilliant rasbors are near the top. So, you know, you put that in, everybody kind of gets a shot at it. I also put flakes. I also add flakes, but I crumble the flakes up and then put my hand in the water and move it a little bit, and that creates a very slow drop of the flake. If I just drop the flake stays on top. But if you want the flakes to float, just hold the flakes in your hand, crumble them just a little bit, and then drop the tips of your fingers in the tank and move it, and you'll get a very slow sinking flake. But this stuff is great. The fish in the 55-gallon love it. But if you have big fish, I mean, if I put this in the tank behind me, I think they would actually laugh at me. What are you putting that in here for? All right. All right, folks. I think we're over our 1 hour allocation. Peas and Haps has to go anyway. So I want to thank all of you for joining me and for continuing to follow me on this ongoing journey. And, you know, right when you think you have something wired, you get into a new area, like moving from California to Tennessee, and discovering that it's actually a different game keeping African cichlids in these water parameters. And it was easy for me to say, let them acclimate in California because I had the right water for them. And when people would tell me your aragonite and calcium, your aragonite and crushed coral is going to become exhausted, I would just shrug my shoulders and go, well, I've never had that problem. So, you know, we're kind of in our silo, and all of a sudden we change, and what worked back then doesn't work now. So under the circumstances I'm in right now, yes, aragonite and crushed coral does become exhausted, and I'm hoping the addition of limestone and crushed coral with, you know, at least once a month testing is going to go ahead and solve that problem for me. So stay tuned. You'll be the first to know. And Whip World, yep, not all water is created equal. What worked then doesn't necessarily work now. All right. So that being said, I think I'm going to play a little jazz music for you. What do you say? Thank you, my friends. You're the best. No live stream next week. I'm going to be in New Orleans. No live stream next week. I'll see you in 2 weeks, my friends. You rock. Never forget. You're the best. You're very appreciated. I'll see you in 2 weeks.